You all laughed at me. Well, I have to say, you're not laughing now, are you?
Escape velocity for Bitcoin is in full effect. Order books are very thin on exchanges, meaning extreme volatility on short time frames, exactly like we're seeing. I mean, the size of these candles are extraordinary. But now that the shackles are finally off, we all want to know, where is Bitcoin going to go now? I think up, but I know we want more specific than that. So let's turn to the experts in the field. Some very wealthy and successful individuals, some with teams of researchers and market analysts, although from this you'd be surprised that they do have that. Some with the power single-handedly to impact the price of Bitcoin. One such individual, Scott Minard, Chief Investment Officer. They should really give me that job. Leave a like if you agree. His firm manages $230 billion worth of assets. Let's hear what he's got to say.
Of course, we made the decision to start allocating toward Bitcoin when Bitcoin was at 10,000. It's a little more challenging with the current price closer to 20,000. Amazing, over a very short period of time, how big of a run-up we've had. But having said that, our fundamental work shows that Bitcoin should be worth about $400,000.
Whoa.
So, we're going to, even if we had the ability to do so today, we're going to monitor the market and see how trading goes on valuation, but ultimately look to buy it.
400,000, so that would be a 20x from a 20k Bitcoin. He said it's difficult for the exact reason I already mentioned. Order books are very thin. It's becoming a nightmare to buy tens of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin.
How do you frame a 400,000 Bitcoin? How do you get from where we are now out to 400,000? Is it just based on scarcity?
Yeah, right, Tom. It's based on the scarcity and relative valuation, such as things like gold as a percentage of GDP. So, Bitcoin is actually has a lot of the attributes of gold, and at the same time has an unusual value in terms of transactions.
So we don't know exactly what framework he's dealing with to put a valuation on Bitcoin, but it involves Bitcoin relative to gold and GDP. He didn't give a time frame for this prediction. I guess it's irrespective. You wonder if they use this framework to measure other assets too, and apparently it must be accurate more often than not to be managing so much money. He certainly did a good job making a 20x sound surprisingly rational, even if it would be kind of surprising.
I'll fight you for it.
He went on to say that the supply of Bitcoin is limited to 21 million, let's be real, 16, 17 million now, who knows? Giving it its anti-inflationary trademark, the token scarcity together with the Federal Reserve's rampant money printing suggests its price should rise to 400,000. That I can understand. One significant reason for this rally is thanks to this, in my opinion. Congress is near passing a $900 billion stimulus deal. $900 billion. How on earth can Bitcoin go down in the face of this? And this is mirrored all across the world. Was COVID the best thing to happen to Bitcoin? I'm starting to think so. Do you remember how there was talk of war at the beginning of the year? And how that was, I know, correlation, causation, but it was a good time for Bitcoin as well. Anyway, the firm last month filed to reserve the right for 10% of its $5.3 billion macro opportunities fund to invest in the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. Again, should have hired me. These types of guys are what you might call or refer to as the Bitcoin Plunge protection team. They want more Bitcoin. As they say, it's getting really hard. They want to buy up those 5 to 10% dips as we've seen. Anyway, moving on to the next analyst, Seth Gins, founder of Coin Fund Investments.
400,000. That had our jaws on the floor. We had to sort of call him up and make sure he was meaning it. Talk to us about that 400,000 figure. How quickly does he get there, Seth?
Well, the way we're thinking about it, and my involvement in Bitcoin started in 2012, and Coin Fund was founded in 2015. The way we're thinking about it is, if you look at kind of the pattern recognition of Bitcoin's 4-year cycles, 150 to 250,000 looks like the base case. But here's the thing, it's becoming an institutional asset class this cycle, and that strikes me as being analogous to, my background is in equities. When Tesla stepped up from the $25 to $35 range up to 150 to 350, and then it consolidated for a while, I think we could actually pull forward the next cycle, see Bitcoin go to 500,000 to 1 million, and then probably consolidate for a few years in that range.
Yeah.
But I think we could actually get there in the 21, 22 timeframe.
Okay. All right. I like that. 2021, 2022, between 500,000 to 1 million. So between a 25 and a 50x from a 20K Bitcoin. So let's critique his rationale. Cycles, a boom and bust every 4 years. Let's show this visualized in the gayest of ways. The Bitcoin rainbow chart. Actually, pretty accurate. So cycles happen every 4 years around the time that a halving happens. The peak of the next cycle within the year time frame that he's given, $250,000 very, very optimistically. It would almost be a 2x from realistic expectations based on previous events. However, he did make the fact that this time is different. Institutions are involved, which actually is a game changer. Here's an example why. Michael Saylor, CEO of MicroStrategy and just all-around great guy if you're holding Bitcoin. He says that his company plans to hold Bitcoin for 100 years. Very, very different to retail investors. He also says it would only take 10 billionaires to triple the price of Bitcoin. There are people that'll put 500 million into a bad idea. If you've got 100 billion in your portfolio, you might bet 500 million expecting you'll get a 100 to 1 return 1% of the time or 5% of the time and think that's a good idea. So I think that's why everything's accelerating. Here's the other thing. When a person with 10 billion puts 10 billion on the network, they've got a friend with 10 billion. Warren Buffett plays bridge with Bill Gates. I don't know what bridge is. It must be a very bougie game or something. And then they talk with Mark Zuckerberg. That's an interesting point. I do wonder if Mark would ever buy Bitcoin, considering his rivals got into it so much earlier than him, and pride is something very difficult to overcome. Anyway, I can see where he's coming from, but I think it's just a random hopeful guess from a big bag holder at this point. The cycle rationale really has only got your back to 100K, maybe 200K at a push by 2022, by the end of 2022. Even the much maligned stock to flow chart predicts only 100,000 or so by then, and billionaires getting in is just a hope. I just don't think it's very likely, to be honest. I'd love it if it was, though. Anyway, our last analyst, Peter Schiff. Also joking. Let's get the opposite side, shall we, guys? Let's give the bears a chance for once to change our minds. The voice of Rosenberg Research chief economist and strategist.
You speak to most people that are asking me to put money in Bitcoin. They can't even tell you who the person was that developed it or even how it's actually mined. So it's just a classic follow the herd, extremely crowded trade. It's in a massive bubble. And everybody seems to believe that, we're going to get to that 21 million cap on the supply constraint. But there's really nothing in the protocol to suggest that the supply of Bitcoin can't go up once we hit that limit. The one thing we do know about gold is we know the supply curve of gold with certainty. We don't know the future supply curve of Bitcoin. People think they know, but they don't really know. So I would just say that, it's a massive bubble.
All right, I gave him a shot. I really did. I had a rebuttal. I have notes. I have a rebuttal. What is the point? Let's just move on. That was probably one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. The quality of his arguments compared to the first two guys, yeah, there's a clear difference.
I'm normal. Me too.
They don't know what mining is. Like, come on. Thing is, even past critics like JP Morgan are suggesting there's 600 billion in potential new Bitcoin demand. They're getting that figure by saying that through all the fund managers out there, all the money that they're managing, if 1% of that went into Bitcoin, 600 billion in new Bitcoin demand. I mean, I just don't think critics are accurately sensing the room right now. So, anyway, in summation, experts predict 100K in 2021 or 2022 on the low end. That's the important part, that's the low end. $500,000 on the high end. Is that reasonable? Fundamentally, in my opinion, absolutely. If not for the sheer fact that Bitcoin's market cap in comparison to gold is very, very low. But I don't know if sellers would allow Bitcoin to go beyond 100K within that time frame. Seeing how there's a lot of analysis pointing to the 100K being the top, and usually tops are big round numbers, just like that. Is 100K FUD now? Maybe. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.